Beneath the iconic pyramids of Egypt, there's far more than just shifting sand. Intriguing evidence suggests that a vast network of tunnels lies hidden beneath the Giza plateau, extending deep below these ancient structures. This isn't merely a matter of a few dozen meters. Rather, it hints at an elaborate underground system whose true extent and dimensions remain largely undiscovered. As early as the 19th century, accounts by Henry Salt alluded to the existence of catacombs beneath Giza. Modern researcher Andrew Collins affirms this, stating, "This is not a fabrication. A portion of these passages genuinely exists." According to Collins, these tunnels are artificial in origin, meticulously carved directly into the bedrock, and were likely utilized as sacred spaces. He postulates that within these hidden depths, one might find the crucial key to understanding the true purpose behind the construction of the pyramids themselves. It's entirely possible that the pyramids we see today were merely the external manifestation of a ritual, with the principal ceremonies unfolding far beneath the Earth's surface. This perspective inevitably gives rise to a host of new questions. Why, for instance, are the tombs for which the pyramids were supposedly built so often found empty? What spiritual hunger led the Aztecs to offer human hearts? Who, in ancient Egypt, was believed to consume the spirits of the deceased? Whom exactly were the ancient Chinese sacrificing? And why were human remains incorporated into the walls and foundations of their structures? But the most profound question of all is, why, across disparate parts of the world in different eras, and without any apparent contact between them, did various civilizations consistently build similar pyramids, almost as if serving an identical underlying purpose? Recently, Egyptologists made a groundbreaking statement that could fundamentally alter our understanding of the past. It turns out the pyramids were not constructed by enslaved people, but by free individuals. Archaeologists unearthed an entire settlement belonging to those who served the colossal funerary complex. These were highly coordinated teams of specialists, architects, mathematicians, and stone carvers, essentially the engineering elite of their time. Their tombs were discovered south of the Great Pyramid of Khufu, Cheops, the largest in Egypt, built approximately 4,500 years ago. The construction spanned about 20 years and was overseen by Hemiunu, a relative of the pharaoh. People traveled from all corners of the country, primarily after the crop harvest. A significant portion of the workforce consisted of farmers. During the Nile's annual inundation from July to October, unable to work their fields, they transitioned to construction. These laborers were not compelled to work. They were compensated with food and care. Approximately 5,000 professionals resided in a dedicated settlement, complete with comprehensive infrastructure, residential quarters, and even a market. Animal remains indicate that their diet included beef and goat meat. Seasonal workers were housed separately and received rations of about 10 loaves of bread per day, along with a pitcher of beer. Bread served not only as sustenance but also as a medium of exchange, implying that a functional economic system operated within their community. Many workers managed to live to ages between 30 and 40. For that era, this was considered a normal, sometimes even advanced age. However, numerous skeletons showed evidence of healed fractures, broken ribs, damaged limbs, and spinal injuries, testament to the arduous nature of their labor. Furthermore, graves belonging to women and children were found near the workers' settlements. This suggests that some builders lived here permanently, not just temporarily, alongside their families, forming a complete community. In 2013, Egyptian and French researchers discovered a papyrus belonging to an official named Mirror. It describes how a crew of 40 men spent months transporting massive limestone blocks down the Nile by sailboat. The stone was quarried approximately 12 kilometers upstream. Later discoveries revealed that a full branch of the Nile once existed, bringing the waterway almost directly to the Giza plateau. By water, the blocks were transported as close as possible to the construction site. A single journey typically lasted about 5 days. From there, they were dragged across the sand using embankments and ramps, traces of which are preserved to this day. But Giza is more than just 3 pyramids. It's an entire complex encompassing temples, statues, cemeteries, and thousands of burials. This grand necropolis was created over centuries and functioned like a bustling city centered around a profound cult. The necropolis was far from a dead place. It was a vibrant hub. Nobles were interred in smaller mastaba tombs featuring underground chambers and prayer spaces above. It was believed that the closer a tomb was to the pharaoh's pyramid, the nearer one would be to him in the afterlife. However, within the pyramids themselves, human remains are surprisingly rare. There are exceptions. The mummy of Djedkar Isi was found in his pyramid near the ancient necropolis, about 30 kilometers from modern-day Cairo. The remains of Neferukar Kakai were discovered in an unfinished pyramid on the west bank of the Nile. Both rulers lived in the 3rd millennium BC. Yet, the overall picture remains peculiar. The majority of pyramids are empty, which seems paradoxical given that a pyramid was conceived as an ascension machine, a structure intended to secure the pharaoh's path to the gods. Ancient Egyptians meticulously constructed an extraordinarily complex system to ensure the ruler's unhindered passage into the afterlife. So why are the pharaoh's bodies so seldom found within the pyramids themselves? According to one theory, the emptiness within the pyramids is not accidental but integral to their purpose. Archaeologist Andrew Collins proposes that the pyramid was less a burial place and more a starting point for the ritual, a place where the journey merely began. And if that's the case, the crucial question becomes, to where exactly? The answer emerges in Egyptian texts. In later conceptions, the afterlife was no longer primarily the sky but Duat, the underworld. Duat is described as a sprawling space through which one must journey, complete with halls, corridors, and even watery regions. It was believed that the soul first arrived there, where it was awaited, before commencing its further progression. This underworld was consistently linked in texts to the west, the place where the sun sets. It was called Amenti and envisioned as a zone through which the deceased passed. First came the boundary, then the judgment of Osiris, where Anubis weighed the heart against the feather of Maat. Everything depended on the outcome of this pivotal moment. Either the soul would be destroyed, or it would be granted the opportunity to proceed. But the pharaoh occupied a unique position within this cosmic system. It was believed that he did not tarry through the trials of the underworld but immediately continued his journey as a companion of Ra, accompanying the sun god's bark during its nightly voyage. And it is here that a detail emerges, making this vision far more concrete. In 1954, near the Great Pyramid of Khufu, a hidden chamber was discovered containing a disassembled boat, more than 40 meters, 130 feet, long. Crafted from Lebanese cedar, it was assembled without nails, using intricate joinery typical of real ships. This was no mere symbolic object but a fully engineered construction designed to be put together and used. Considering the Egyptians' beliefs about the post-mortem journey, such a discovery no longer appears coincidental. Interestingly, the concept of a pyramid as a point of passage is not unique to Egypt. Similar architectural and spiritual ideas are found on the other side of the world. In 2018, archaeologists announced the discovery of an underground complex beneath the Pyramid of the Moon in the ancient city of Teotihuacan, Mexico. At a depth of approximately 8 meters, 26 feet, a system of chambers and tunnels was unearthed. Estimates suggest they were created as early as the 1st century CE, long before the flourishing of many civilizations in the region. Inside, traces of rituals and burials were found. Even earlier, in the 1980s, hidden chambers containing human remains were discovered under another pyramid in Teotihuacan, while bodies of people with bound hands were unearthed in the Pyramid of the Moon. Most likely, these were sacrificial victims. Nearby, distinct burials of the nobility were also found, arranged quite differently, with clear signs of reverence. This distinction is crucial. Different types of burials in the same location indicate that the space was utilized deliberately and according to specific rules, not merely as a repository for bodies, but as a zone with a clear and defined function. Today, Teotihuacan is a major tourist destination, drawing millions of visitors annually. But in the past, it was a colossal city with over 100,000 inhabitants and an area spanning up to 28 square kilometers, 11 square miles. At its heart stand two principal pyramids, the Pyramid of the Sun and the Pyramid of the Moon, their placement undoubtedly deliberate. The architecture here was meticulously conceived down to the finest detail. For example, one of the city's axes deviates slightly from true north, aligning precisely with the sun's position on specific days of the year. On the solstices, the pyramids function as precise navigational markers, allowing the movement of celestial bodies to be tracked with remarkable accuracy. There is strong reason to believe that these structures were used as astronomical observation points. From their elevated platforms, ancient observers meticulously charted the skies, recording the positions of planets and stars. Many elements of the complex are oriented according to cardinal directions, while others align with specific constellations. Adjacent to these structures runs the so-called Avenue of the Dead, a long, straight thoroughfare along which the entire city was built. One theory posits that this avenue was constructed not merely as a road but as an integral observational tool, enabling the tracking of the sun and stars. Such astronomical observations formed the foundational basis for their calendars and elaborate rituals. And when we turn to the Maya, the picture becomes even more fascinating. In the spring of 2025, a significant incident occurred. A tourist attempted to climb the pyramid of Kukulcan, El Castillo, and was stopped. Ascending these structures is forbidden, with fines reaching tens of thousands of dollars. What exactly are they protecting, and why is climbing prohibited? Such structures are still regarded as deeply sacred. And here's what's truly astonishing. The pyramid itself isn't merely a building. It's a precisely engineered system. It features 4 stairways, each with 91 steps. In total, that adds up to 364 steps. If you include the top platform, the count reaches 365, precisely the number of days in a year. 18 sections are arranged along its sides, corresponding to the number of months in the Maya calendar. So what we have here is not a mere symbol, but quite literally a built calendar, meticulously carved into stone. But there's a detail that isn't immediately obvious. If you clap your hands at the base of the pyramid, the reflected sound doesn't return as a simple echo, but almost as an exact replica of the cry of the sacred Quetzal bird. This is no accidental effect. It's a deliberate acoustic design, integrated directly into the building's form. This phenomenon makes the entire picture even more extraordinary. Before us stands not simply a stone pyramid, but an object that simultaneously functions as a calendar and a device capable of transforming sound. Even the very shape holds profound significance. The stepped structure reflects the ancient Mesoamerican cosmological concept of the world. The lowest level is associated with the underworld, the realm of the dead, the middle level with human life, and the uppermost level with the heavens and the gods. If all of this were merely architecture, why was it built in such a way, almost as if it demands interaction? The stepped structure reflects the ancient Mesoamerican cosmological concept of the world. The lowest level is associated with the underworld, the realm of the dead, the middle level with human life, and the uppermost level with the heavens and the gods. Ultimately, a truly intriguing pattern emerges. Across diverse cultures, on different continents, pyramids consistently fulfill multiple functions simultaneously. They serve as navigational landmarks, calendars, ritual centers, and points of transition between the distinct levels of the cosmos. Is this mere coincidence, or a recurring idea that different civilizations independently arrived at? That is a question for which there is still no definitive answer. In 2025, the discovery of the tomb of Pharaoh Thutmose II, who reigned in the 15th century BCE, was confirmed. Archaeologists found vessels clearly bearing his name, yet the tomb itself proved to be surprisingly modest. For a ruler of the powerful 18th dynasty, an era marked by military might and territorial expansion, such a humble burial seems remarkably odd, almost devoid of luxury. The tomb had been damaged and plundered in antiquity, and subsequently suffered severe damage from groundwater. But the greatest enigma lies elsewhere. The pharaoh himself was not found there. His mummy had been discovered much earlier, not in his own tomb, but in a hidden cache alongside other rulers. This was no accident. The ancient Egyptians themselves, centuries after the original burials, relocated the bodies of pharaohs, endeavoring to protect them from widespread tomb raiding. They believed that everything necessary for the afterlife, from gold to everyday items, was sent with the ruler. And the first to breach these tombs were by no means foreigners. Often, this was carried out by Egyptians themselves, including those who participated in the construction or maintenance of the complexes. They knew the layouts, the secret entrances, and the weak points. Sometimes, for a fee, they would share this invaluable information with others. Official protection was not primarily derived from booby traps, but from the texts and curses carved into the walls, which clearly warned of dire consequences for anyone who dared disturb the peace of the deceased. Yet, judging by the findings, these warnings did not deter everyone. Even darker details have surfaced. Within the royal tombs, absolute darkness reigned, necessitating a steady light source for those who entered. In some discoveries, traces of soot have been detected on ceilings and walls, a clear indication that open fires were regularly lit in the narrow corridors. It's believed that looters utilized anything that could burn long and brightly. The resins and oils used to saturate mummy wrappings and funerary materials were highly suitable for this purpose, producing a dense, stable flame that wouldn't extinguish immediately. Portions of these fabrics or oil-soaked wooden elements could have easily served as makeshift torches. Meanwhile, papyri from the New Kingdom era preserve not only descriptions of the robberies themselves but also interrogation protocols. Thieves were captured, thoroughly questioned about their methods of infiltration, and severely punished. Yet, even this harsh justice failed to stem the tide of plunder. At one point, the situation spiraled out of control. Consequently, in the 11th and 10th centuries BCE, priests began to take radical action. They themselves reopened ancient tombs and secretly relocated the mummies of pharaohs to hidden rock shelters. Thus, collective burials were created, where rulers, separated by centuries, ended up side by side, outside their original pyramids. And here another critical question arises. If even after many centuries the Egyptians themselves exhumed the pharaohs' bodies and hid them elsewhere, then the problem wasn't solely with the tomb robbers. Something within the pyramids themselves had ceased to function as originally intended. In the late 1980s, a hypothesis emerged that continues to spark debate to this day. The three pyramids of Giza may reflect the precise alignment of the stars in Orion's belt, a constellation that the Egyptians deeply associated with Osiris. Historians believe that humans began observing the sky long before the advent of writing. In Mesopotamia, this astronomical knowledge was already evolving into a sophisticated system. The Sumerians developed the lunar calendar. The Babylonians meticulously tracked planetary movements and laid the foundations of the zodiac. Against this backdrop, ziggurats emerged, stepped structures that, from the exterior, resembled pyramids but were constructed differently. Critically, within them there are no royal tombs. One theory suggests that from their summits, priests observed the heavens and performed complex calculations. But this explanation doesn't account for everything. The construction of these monumental structures demanded immense resources, making it unlikely their sole function was mere observation. Therefore, ziggurats are increasingly viewed from a broader perspective. For ancient peoples, height was not just a convenient vantage point but a sacred boundary, a place where one could draw closer to the forces believed to govern both the heavens and earthly life. In this sense, a ziggurat functioned more as an intermediary between worlds than a simple instrument. The construction of these buildings was meticulously executed. Unfired mud bricks were typically used for the interior, while stronger, fired bricks were employed for the exterior. Terraces rose one above the other, forming ascending steps, leading to a secluded chamber at the very top reserved for rituals. The entire remaining space represented the arduous journey to that sacred pinnacle. One of the most famous examples is the Etemenanke ziggurat in Babylon. Its name translates to House of the Foundation of Heaven and Earth. It was a colossal structure, approximately 90 meters, 295 feet, high, with a square base built from tens of millions of bricks. It is widely believed that this particular ziggurat later became associated with the biblical image of the Tower of Babel. In the 3rd century BCE, it was destroyed, yet the underlying idea never vanished. Across diverse cultures, it constantly reappears. To ascend higher means to approach the critical boundary between worlds. In Mesoamerica, this concept takes an even more stark form. The Maya, Aztecs, and other indigenous peoples constructed pyramids on whose summits they performed elaborate rituals. They ascended not merely to observe, but to offer sacrifices. Among the Aztecs, this logic was taken to its extreme. They believed the sun did not move on its own. It needed to be nourished, and this energy was provided by human life. During the ritual, a priest would extract the heart, the ultimate source of strength, and offer it to the gods. This was not perceived as cruelty. It was considered an absolute necessity, without which the world would simply cease to function. But the more disturbing discoveries begin further north. In northern China, at the ancient city of Shirmao, a stepped pyramid, massive walls, and human remains have been unearthed. Studies revealed that some of the skulls belonged to young women. Several of these remains were carefully placed within foundations and near gates, as if deliberately integrated into the very fabric of the construction. The explanations could vary. Ritualistic practices during construction, a stark demonstration of power, or consequences of warfare. But something else is more significant. The same pattern reemerges. Egypt, Mesoamerica, China. Different continents, different eras, different levels of technological development. And yet, the same geometry. In Mesoamerica alone, over 1,000 pyramidal structures are known. In China, there are hundreds of complexes, many of which remain undiscovered. In Egypt, there are over 100 pyramids, and these are only the ones officially recorded. If this is not mere coincidence, then what is this recurring element? Is it the form itself, or the profound idea that lies beneath it? Various theories exist. The classic utilitarian explanation that a pyramid is simply stable and easier to build with primitive materials. There's an astronomical hypothesis. Their precise orientation toward cardinal points, stars, and celestial cycles. There's also a social function version, a demonstration of power, a concentration of resources, and a means of control over the populace. But none of these explanations fully accounts for everything at once, because so often, the same cluster of characteristics consistently appears in these structures: height, steps, and elaborate rituals. And now comes an unexpected twist that will give even the most skeptical researchers pause. Antarctica. In the 2010s, satellite images of the Ellsworth Mountains region began to be actively debated. They reveal peaks with strikingly sharp edges, remarkably resembling pyramids. Their angles, distinct lines, and almost symmetrical forms immediately gave rise to dozens of theories. Official science offers a straightforward explanation. These are nunataks, mountain peaks that protrude above the ice. Such a form is created under the influence of erosion, wind processes, and the specific properties of the rocks. But why, even there, does an almost perfectly formed pyramid appear? Why does the same geometry manifest across cultures that had no contact with each other? According to some estimates, up to 90% of the planet's archaeological sites have yet to be studied or remain hidden beneath earth, sand, and ice. This implies that we are observing only a fragmented piece of a much larger picture. What if the pyramids of Egypt, the complexes of Mexico, the stacked structures of China, and even the strange forms beneath Antarctica's ice are not mere coincidences, but components of the same underlying system that we have yet to fully comprehend? If the topic of Antarctica interests you, my channel features dedicated investigations with analyses of discoveries and anomalies beneath the ice. Please share your thoughts on pyramids in the comments. Could they have been part of something far greater? I am very eager to read your versions and perspectives.